All right, what is going on, guys? It is time for another episode of the Chasing Waypoints podcast. A couple of weeks off. Man, this is getting, this is starting to get tough. Got bikes to work on, things to do, all these irons in the fire. But we are back. We're getting episodes done, and it is going to be a busy weekend. I plan on being on the microphone, and I think probably the entirety of tomorrow, Saturday. But it is Friday. You guys are listening to this on Sunday morning, hopefully with a cup of coffee or choice beverage. I mean, it's noon somewhere. And some of you guys all the way from Europe and all sorts of parts of the world. I think we've officially hit 100 countries, which is absolutely insane. Yeah, I remember starting rambling about an 850 and a 790. Had a friend listen to the first episode, not a few, maybe a couple of weeks ago now. They're like, there's been a lot of changes in the show. I go, yeah. But anyway, we are having fun. It is all sorts of good times. Rally events going off. Baja Rally School just went off. I absolutely missed that one, and it absolutely sucked. But I had to do it. I got some stuff working, and I'm trying to figure out how this is all going to go down. But basically, I got to save my days off, because this could be an epic start to the next year. That is all I'm going to say about that. I'm not going to jinx myself on it. But anyway, let's get to today's episode and what we have got going on here. Let's see if... let's go. Sending the link over to today's guest. If you guys read the title, you know who's on the show today. It is none other than Jacob Argubright. I've got him logging on here in just a second. I am keeping an eye on it. But yeah, fresh off of Sonora, dust racing, and also the Dakar Rally. So we're doing the recap for both Dakar Rally and the Sonora Rally for Jacob Argubright. And all the stuff they got going on, man. He is all over the place. Seems like every time I am looking to get a hold of him, it's been a minute that we've been trying to get together and do the recap show. And, well, we finally got a hold of him. Busy racing schedule and everything is going on. So let's turn the party down. I see he is on here. Jacob?
Victor?
What's going on, sir? Good morning.
Good morning. No, not much. Just getting up and getting going. How about you?
Same. Been going since 5 a.m.
Oof.
Yep. Well, you're an early riser too, though.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of have to be for rally, but the older I get, the earlier I get up. And honestly, I went to bed at like 8:30 last night. I was tired.
Isn't it weird how that works? It's like as you get older, the bedtime starts going earlier as well.
Yeah, and I just don't care, but I like to be up early, and like no one else or less people are up, and you just get more things done. So no shame. No,
none at all. It's interesting. It was admittedly, I'm a bit of a workaholic, and when I finally put a stop to it and turned my schedule around to like what you're saying, waking up, by 4 in the morning, I try and be up and ready to go. And it's completely different. It's like the last thing I do in my day is go to work. And yeah, it just makes such a big difference. You actually feel a little bit more accomplished. And meanwhile, listeners are going, oh, hell no.
Yeah. Well, it's not for everybody, but no, like I said, no shame. And it's just, like I said, the older I get, I just don't care. And I like to do things my way.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Then, and speaking of early mornings, you had about 15 of those at the beginning of the year.
I did. Oh man. And they were the best / worst early mornings I've ever had.
Oh man. So let's talk Dakar 2023. What day did you ship out there? What time did you head out?
So I shipped out the day after Christmas, so I was on the Desco team, and my friend and teammate Ace Nielsen was also on the Des team. He had left, a little bit before Christmas, and he was training in Dubai. I thought about doing that, but I was still kind of fundraising, getting the last of my things. And my plan was to train all the way on my bike here and leave the day after Christmas, which I did. And I ended up getting to Jeddah, it was like a day later, and I pretty much had a day to kill. And I took the hour flight to Yanbu, and I got there. I think on the 29th of December.
Okay. So, man, it's a little bit of a production traveling there.
Yeah, I had never been really to the Middle East other than Dubai and the UAE, and so even before that, you have this kind of this notion of how people are going to be. But honestly, getting there, people were really nice. I had a pretty smooth travel day, so I was actually going to fly economy. I was on the same flight as Mason and a couple of the other ARO guys. I was looking at the Saudi Airlines app, and Mason's mom messaged me, and she's like, "Hey, you should try to upgrade to business." And this was the morning of the flight, so I'm like, "Okay, I'll look, see, we'll see what happens." Well, there's a bidding system. You can just bid an amount to upgrade to business. And on the scale, the lowest amount you could do was like $800. And so I bid $800 to upgrade to business. And I was like, there's no way this is going to take, on the scale, it says like your quality of bid, and it said low. I forget, it said something like low or like not very good. And I'm like, yeah, there's no way this is going to work.
And of course it did.
as I'm getting to the airport, I get the email that I got upgraded to business. So I'm like, I'm super stoked. I can't believe it. I got upgraded for less than $1,000, on a 15-hour flight, to business. So I'm like, already on cloud nine. I get there. I started talking to the guys, and it sounds like they spent a lot more to upgrade. So I'm like, I'm acting a little bit cocky. I'm like, yeah.
Nice.
So, sorry, I was going to say thanks to Mason's mom for letting me know that. I was like, I couldn't believe it. And honestly, I was prepared to fly economy, so I was risking it, but I'll probably do it again, because if I fly the same Saudi Airlines, I'll do it again, but no, the flight over there was fine. It was pretty nice and relaxed in business. And yeah, like on the airplane, the Saudi Airlines, they only had certain movies because it was a pretty Saudi-esque company, and as we were flying over Mecca, all the screens turned to prayer time, to offer a prayer. And, it's just a different cultural experience, to say the least.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, and it's funny, it's of all of these things, right? All of the experiences and all of the rally, there's all these like micro experiences. So just to say you went to the Dakar, it's not just saying you went to the Dakar. You lived all of these little experiences, all of these little different things. I had no idea they did that over Mecca. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and the little experiences are make up so much of it, and it's not even during the rally. It's like before just getting to Dakar. I spent like a year getting there, and I'm in the process of doing it again. It's literally a lifestyle of little experiences to go and spend 2 weeks racing a dirt bike. It's it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk a little bit about the journey to get there. Obviously it wasn't, it was hard fought. It's not, it's really two events. It's the journey to the Dakar to get there, and then it's the Dakar itself. What were some of the things, like what was the biggest help? What was the biggest, what are the big, and now focusing on getting this, what's the biggest thing that you have to do?
Honestly, it's just getting the funds to get there. They say the hardest part about Dakar is just getting there. And it is true. I did a bunch of fundraising, and, I'm pretty fortunate to have a lot of friends and have a little bit of, status in the racing world, which I appreciate. And, it's just a grind. I tell people, I used to race more in the States at a top level, and I pretty much took off the last year just to fundraise and focus on getting there, which is a big lifestyle change for me. And, you're just always grinding, selling t-shirts, trying to do different things, do a fundraiser, look for sponsors. And it's literally like a full-time job to try and get there, especially your first time. You have to do all these things that just suddenly pop up, and you don't have the experience until you actually do the event. And it's not that it's hard. It's just you've never done it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, oh, I mean, it's not a big thing, but like I didn't have my motorcycle license. Like I had to go do that. And so that, you know, it takes a weekend because in California you have to do either a test or the motorcycle safety course. So I opted to do the safety course, which is, you know, $500, and then you have to go take the test. And it's just little things like that that just add up and, you know, just take time to get there. And, you know, I'm kind of planning my fundraising now for this year, and I'm trying to figure out a more sustainable model because like, I want to go for the future. You know, I'm trying not to sell my soul and everything I have to get there. So, you know, I'm trying to explore some different routes to get there and, you know, figure out, you know, like I said, ways to get there without selling my soul.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. And it's, and we'll talk like if it was a salary range, but I mean, more or less, right? Because so you were with a team, supported on a team, you went to, what does that kind of look like now that you have the numbers after the dust is settled?
For as far as cost?
Yeah. If you could share.
For me, yeah, it's cool. It was around $75,000.
Okay.
I honestly, and it was a great package. I love the Dustco guys. You know, now that I've been around and I've seen different teams, I still choose to be with them. They're awesome. They're from Poland. Smaller group of guys, but they're organized. And, you know, I'm sure we'll get into the Sonora thing, but, you know, they came over here and like, we just talked a bunch, and it seems like, you know, we're just forming a nice little team, and we're staying in our lane and doing our thing.
Nice. That's cool. And I mean, and the bike you were on, I mean, it was 20 or 21 RFR, or what was it?
Yeah, you know, I don't even know the year. It's the current model. It's not the current model anymore with the new bike out, but it's either 20 or 21. Just a stock RFR with springs in the suspension from TBT suspension, and just some graphics. Nice.
So all right. So, you know, the fundraising part of it, the journey over there, the travel over there. It's interesting that you mentioned TBT. I'm a total nerd when it comes to the motorcycle stuff. I like just tinkering. I know how to wrench on them better than I know how to ride them, which eventually I'll make it up to, to get some classes. Actually,
let's do it.
Yeah. So how you're going to go halfway across the world, you're going to go ride a bike competitively, and you're an extremely competitive rider. How do you prepare? Like, okay, what did you and the guys at TBT come up with as far as a suspension package for this thing so it would feel a little better?
Well, so I will say, out of the box, the RFR is the best stock bike I've ever ridden. It's the most like directed bike towards what its intended use. You know, if you buy a normal bike here, the KTM bikes are made kind of for supercross, but we ride them off road. But that bike is sole purposes rally, and it's the best bike I've ever ridden out of the box, hands down. It's got everything you need, you know, but the problem is it's expensive to get here and it's hard to get here. So the last time I rode it was actually at the Abu Dhabi Desert Challenge, which was a little bit over a year before the Dakar. So I hadn't ridden the bike in the year. So knowing that, to prepare, all we really had time for and to do, because I like the bike, like I said, stock, was we basically just sprung it for my weight. You know, I'm a little bit heavier. I'm like 210 pounds, so I'm a bigger guy. And the stock springs are, you know, obviously too light for me. So all we did, like I said, was TBT shipped me with some springs. We went over to the WP truck and they installed them for us, which, you know, looking back, I think it was a good solution. I actually have the Dustco bikes here, so I'm going to do a little bit more testing with some parts and some suspension, because after spending that long on the bike, like I picked up a lot of things that I can make better. But like I said, for not riding the bike a year and, you know, just putting in the springs, I loved it. The terrain over there is smoother than the States. You know, if you go to any of the deserts here, they're not choppy. They're just rougher. More people ride, so it's not as big a deal. But yeah.
Yeah. So it's a little bit more pristine, because here I just got off the last event I rode out here was the SoCal Rally, and it was sand and whoops. That's not that it was a lot of it. There was a lot around it, but and as I said, you can't ride for a distance anywhere here in SoCal without hitting sand and whoops. It is what it is. So not the terrain over there.
Yeah, not quite. It's sand. It's sand, rocks, and big open desert in Saudi, which the desert over there is really, really beautiful. Mm-hmm. It's just smoother. It's just smoother. Like I said, over here, it's just more people riding, and you got roads, you got sand dunes, you got sand, rocks. It's just a little bit nicer to ride.
Nice. A little more pristine, or not as beat up. Well, in SoCal, right? It's the world center of off-road. I feel like.
Yeah, and actually, we take it for granted. Like, we're pretty fortunate. I was riding the other day. I'm like, man, we have really good desert, even if it's clapped out. Like, I don't care. I do all my road books, or a lot of them in Lucerne, where it's hooped out. And I don't care. All right, we're pretty fortunate.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm not doing any of your road books until I learn how to ride whoops.
No. I have some for me
mm-hmm.
I use that are just tricky. I don't care where I go. And then I have some for other people that want to have a good time and maybe see some scenery and not do hoops.
Yeah.
So I have both.
Yeah, 'cause those can be a bit of a handful on a rally bike. Well, okay, so have you taken the rally replicas on any of those? Are you?
Well, so after Sonora, we got the bikes.
Mm-hmm.
They left them here. There's 3 here. I took one out. I actually went and raced a local District 37 dual European scramble, mm-hmm. which, if you don't know, it's like a 6 to 10 mile course. You do 4 or 5 laps. It's about 45 minutes to an hour, and I did 2 of them. Mm-hmm. So I went out to my local desert, did a couple desert races. And yeah, you're right. It's a big bike in the hoops, but I wanted to get some testing and just see how it handled out in the desert. But so yeah, I've ridden it there, and I approve of the bike.
Okay, so it's got the stamp of approval.
Yes.
So okay, let's go. Dakar for you was, you put some results. You were there. Tell us about the adventure. What was that like? What were the stages like? What was that all about?
So, getting off the plane, getting there, I got into the bivouac, what they call C camp at the start at about 11 PM. I think it was, like I said, the 29th. And you get there, you go through there's a big Dakar arch, that's 20, 30 feet high, and you go under it, and you just see this massive conglomerate of everything. And it's a sight to see. I was pretty mind blown. I had a little bit of jet lag because I had slept on the plane, which I usually don't do. I think it was because I flew business. I was just all around excited. I don't think I went to bed until like 5 a.m. I got to C camp. I was looking around. They don't tell you how many, what I call the garbage trucks, mm-hmm. the big race trucks there are. There's so many, and it's just, everything is on a grand scale. So I'm there, I'm full of energy. I'm like, this camp is amazing. There's so many things to see. And yeah, I don't think I went to bed till like 5. And, I met the team, saw them. And the first day, I think we had to go right into tech. So we get there, and honestly, that and scrutineering was the most nerve-wracking for me. And I'm not sure why. I think it's, you travel halfway across the globe to do this race, and you want to make sure you have everything, and you've never actually been there. But luckily I was organized, got through tech and scrutineering just fine. No big deal. They do photos of you, which is cool because they use them for the World Rally posts. And, you're just busy. If you've raced like Best in the Desert, it's similar to that. You just got to do a lot of things, and it seems like the time goes very quickly. And so after that, I guess we want to get into stages.
Well, actually, and I was going to ask you, so, okay, from my experience at the score stuff and some of the scrutineering is usually a pretty basic thing. All right. You got water. Yeah. Med kit, sap phones, all your nav equipment, the rally comp scrutineering. I mean, you're talking about, if nobody's in line in 20 minutes, you're done. I have a feeling that's not how it is over there. This sounds like much more of a process.
Yeah, and they organize you, so you have a certain time to go. So like it was me and Ace. We had different times. They were like within 10 or 20 minutes of each other. Mm-hmm. And you go as a team. They organize it so you're there at a certain time. But yeah, I mean, if there's nobody there, then you can get through pretty quickly. But there's, hundreds of competitors, so it's busy, and it's very well organized. There's just a lot to do. I mean, I think there were 17 different stations with like little numbers you had to go through. So it's quite the process.
Damn.
And and the other thing too is they speak English, but the organization is French. So there's a little bit of a language barrier, which is always, kind of fun to play around with and, try to, if you don't have something or they're asking you for something and you can't understand, mm-hmm. That's always a little fun. It takes a little bit to get used to.
Yeah. Yeah. And and I'm thinking 17 stations. I mean, what are they asking you for?
Yeah. Two of them, one was the video service and one was the photo service where you check in. So it's literally everything. And, like I wasn't even going to do the video, but I'm glad I did, which was another $800. But I'm super glad I did it because now I have the video of my first Dakar.
That's awesome. I mean, that's priceless. And I mean, they're pretty good quality too. It's not like, it's not cell phone recordings from the
No, it's awesome recordings. And like, I didn't realize this, but then they follow you with the helicopter, and which is, it's an awesome feeling. Like you get to, pin it in front of the helicopter and, Saudi Arabia, it's definitely priceless.
In the middle of nowhere, headed for the sunset.
Yeah. Yes.
Nice. A little bit of goosebumps there. I can picture that. I think that's got to be pretty cool. As fast as these RFRs will go.
Yeah, and like doing all the signups and just going through everything, I was definitely not on edge, but I was alert and not as calm and cool and collected as I wanted to be, because it was my first time, and it's like it's just so much to take in. I literally, like I was saying about how grand and awesome the first bivouac was, I'm acting like a little schoolgirl, and I'm like, I gotta calm down, and like I gotta be kind of stoked here and get into race mode. But it's hard to.
Yeah. So I imagine so many things going on, and just even the bivouac, kind of cutting back in Sonora, but just even the bivouac from one year to the next, right? From before the FIA-FIM was there, FIA-FIM, versus them being now this last event, there's a big change in the bivouac. It just feels different. There's more teams. It's just, and this is just a little taste of what you see at the Dakar, I imagine.
Yeah. Like going to Sonora, it's definitely, I'd only been there 1 year, 2020, I think, until now. It's definitely grown in Sonora, but it's definitely just a small sliver of Dakar. That's for sure.
Of the Dakar stages. So, okay, we said sunsets, chasing the sunset, or speeding off into the sunset. Stages. What is that like? What are they? Well,
so the first day was just a prologue.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, even before that, I only got 1 day to ride. So you go out and do the testing loop, mm-hmm. and like I said, I hadn't ridden the bike for the year, so I pretty much spent the whole day just doing the testing loop. I tried to take as much time as I could. I ended up doing like 100 kilometers on this. I forget what it was like a 10-kilometer road book. So I did quite a few Ks just trying to get used to the bike. And honestly, I took the time the first couple times to go slow and understand the road book, because one of the things I learned was what they say is considered a road over there versus here is very different. It could be two cars that have gone over the same tracks and they call that a road. Over here, if you're in the desert, a road is like a graded road and it's a road.
Yeah.
So even before I started, I was trying to learn things, and I'm like, okay, a road is not what I'm used to, over here in the States. And that's like one of the differences in our deserts, being more used. Like the roads, like I said, are well defined. Over there, not so much. And in the testing loop, it was definitely burned in. I learned a couple things, and honestly, after I learned, I was just focusing on the bike. It was probably the roughest part of the whole rally, just trying to get the bike good and stuff. And so, yeah, felt pretty good. The prologue, my first, I will say, I'll take ownership. I did not walk or ride or mountain bike the prologue, which ended up hurting me, because I started the prologue, and as you get going down this, it looks like a GP track. It's this graded, road they have that makes a track. I ended up going wide open. In the first 400 meters, there was a sharp right turn, and not walking it, I didn't know. I basically ended up going way, way too fast into it. Laid the bike down, slid into the berm, inflated my airbag, and had my first Dakar crash in the first 400 meters of a stage. So luckily everything was good. I was just like, really, as even before I laid it down, I'm just like, you idiot. And but as soon as I got up, I felt better. I was like, all right, well, that's out of the way. Like, let's keep going. And so, I finished the prologue, had no more falls, and everything was good. I don't know what I finished. I was like, I don't know, between 20 and 30. No, I think it was worse than that, to be honest. I don't remember. But yeah, so I get back, a little bit of embarrassment. I actually had a talk. I just had passed Johnny Campbell after the prologue, and he had a little heart to heart with me. He's like, "What are you doing? Like you're, not that you're better than that, but like, you got so many days, like you could have ended it." And so I took it to heart a little bit, and come to find out, a couple people had crashed in that same corner. I think Nacho had crashed in that corner, and a couple other people. So made me feel a little less bad, but I'm still kind of kicking myself for that little mistake there.
Yeah.
And so yeah, started the first day. Nothing major to report. It was awesome. I had a lot of emotion. You leave early in the morning, and I don't remember how long it was, but you're on the liaisons are a big portion of rally, and just enjoyed the scenery, and did the first stage. I definitely rode reserved. I was making sure my navigation was good, just kind of getting a feel for things. I ended up seeing, Sam Sunderland, down on the ground the first 50K. So I'm like, it can end, in an instant. So, got through my first stage. I was in the 30s, which, to be honest, I was a little surprised I'd be that far back. But, I said, all right, like day one's done, and my plan was just to try and get faster every day and push a little bit more and, just get through the whole thing. And the second day was better. I was riding with Jean-Louis Lepon and Romain Dumontier. And, so I kind of tagged onto them, and I, pushed a little bit more. We ended up coming across, I don't remember who it was, our first crash. He thought he ended up breaking his leg. So we stopped, put our bikes down, used the Erie check to call for the helicopter, which I will give kudos. It's the coolest thing I've ever seen. I feel like it's what racers in the States would like for safety as far as desert racing, or that's what the goal is. So basically how it works is there's a phone, I don't want to say a phone, there's a device on the bike. If the bike is down, and I hope I'm saying this right, after a certain amount of time, the organization will either call the bike or eventually they will send somebody out. But we stopped with this person. We heard someone call the device, and we basically talked to the organization and said, hey, this rider's down. They kind of assessed the damage and what they needed to do. And within 10 minutes, there was a helicopter there. And it was like, it was movie style. They came in swinging the tail around and landed and, ran over to help this person. Yeah. So to get somebody there within, 10 or 15 minutes, which is an incredible response rate, especially in the middle of, Saudi or in the middle of nowhere. So, got him situated. Me and Romain left. And after that, we was just kind of not a sober ride, but we just finished. We didn't have that much to go, but we were just kind of reminded of the dangers and, ended up finishing. Yeah. And so my next mistake was we were there for about 11 minutes. Romain ended up getting credited 11 minutes of his time. Mm-hmm. And I ended up getting, it was either 5 or 6 minutes, excuse me. Mm-hmm. I saw it on the results and I was thinking, I don't know why I got less because I was riding with him. Mm-hmm. I think it's personally, and I don't know this to be true. I think it was because I ended up moving my bike, which triggered my GPS, to make room for the helicopter and block the trail, for this rider. Mm-hmm. We tried to get the rest of the 5 or 6 minutes back because I want my full 11 minutes. Like I don't want, half. And we ended up trying. I think they ended up reviewing it. I'm not sure what happened, but I wish we had ended up fighting harder because I remember the next day I was just like, it's only 5 minutes. I have so much more to go. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to put my head down. But, in hindsight, that 5 minutes would have ended up putting me farther up in the results. But, that's okay. And so, got through the day. We started day 3. Day 3 was good. Some weather came in. Mm-hmm. I remember there was a little bit of weather on the liaisons, and what they don't tell you about Dakar is I think the liaisons are the most sketchiest part of the whole rally. The racing is super safe.
Which is crazy. The race,
it's totally, I don't know if I can cuss. It's totally ass backwards. Like the racing, it feels, after seeing the response time, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm good. I can send it. But on the liaisons, you're on asphalt. It's early in the morning. There's, normal people doing their thing. And hopefully I don't get in trouble, but I just feel like in rally, when you're on the road, you have to take responsibility, but you have a license to do whatever you want on the highway. Mm-hmm. And so I will say, I saw some sketchy things on the liaisons.
Larry filled us in. I heard it from Larry that Mason's dad that the liaisons are no joke. It is scary. Like, driving 4 wide on a 2-lane highway because they felt like they needed to pass each other. And this is just local traffic. I'm not even talking about racers. Like racers are the best behaved kids on the road in comparison to what I heard. And it makes me think like, okay. And people say that driving in Mexico is bad.
Yeah. I might disagree with we're the most well-behaved, but
as far as we're concerned comparison, but if you screw up, you have to take responsibility. Like you're risking it, So, liaisons are sketchy. They're also fun. Like you see a lot of cool scenery. There's a lot of cool things. A little bit of weather starting day 3. Mm-hmm. I get to the stage, it's rocky. It's awesome. It rained. So basically I had a burned in track, and I remember day 3 was my favorite day. It was a lot like the desert here, just rocks, sand, just open desert, mm-hmm. just really, really pretty stuff. I ended up getting to the first gas stop, and I was filling up both tanks. I ended up switching to my front tanks,
And as soon as I switched to my front tanks, I had an issue. Like the bike wouldn't run. I couldn't figure out why. It only ran on the rear tanks. So I was like, shit, I don't know what I'm going to do here.
Yeah.
So I basically ran from the first gas stop to, I think it was the second checkpoint on my rear tank, which by the time I got there, I was doing the math in my head. I was like, I'm pretty much going to run out here. So I stopped at the second checkpoint, and, you know, I figured I'd stop there because I'm not going to go just run out in the middle of nowhere. Like at least I'm going to run, you know, stay here with the checkpoint. So I stop, I try to assess everything. I ended up taking the front tanks off and basically pouring them into the rear tank. And not having the bike for a year, I've never worked on a RFR. So it definitely took me longer than I wanted. You know, I ended up, because like I said, I had never taken the bike apart. I ended up ripping the fuel lines on the front tanks on the bottom apart because I didn't know there was a connector there. So live and learn.
Yeah.
I met, I don't remember his name. I think his name was Lawrence, and it wasn't Lawrence Hacking. I think his name was Lawrence, and he was from Canada. He ended up knowing Mason, and he was just a rally guy, and he was just there helping. He ended up kind of coaching me through, you know, taking off the tanks. So I took off the tanks, poured it into the rear, and, you know, put the front tank back on. And by that time I'm like 45 minutes down. You know, I wish I knew what I was doing, but I didn't. So I get going, I get to the next checkpoint, and they stop the race. So they stopped the race because of the weather.
Oh,
and
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So if the weather's too bad and they can't fly the helicopters, they don't really want to race, because then they can't get anybody if there's an issue, which, you know, part of me is like, you know, that's for wussies, but the other part's like, I understand, you know, we're racing at a very high level and they want to, you know, get people out, which is fine. So, they stop all of us. And by this time, Paul Neff catches me, a couple other people, my Danish friend Thomas. And so we're all just sitting there waiting. And as we're sitting there, the sun kind of goes away and these clouds start rolling over us. And, you know, it looks like pretty terrible weather is coming. And at the end of that day, I think we had a 2-hour liaison to, where was it? I think it was Riyadh. I think that's where it was. Well, so they have us wait there. They say the stage is done. We're all going to get on the highway, and we're going to add 45 minutes to this 2-hour liaison, you know, to get to camp. So when you get to a checkpoint, which is where we were, you're in a speed zone. And if you're in a speed zone, your tracker will beep at you, you know, if you're going too fast. Well, when you're done with the speed zone, you hit a waypoint and it turns off the speed zone, and you can, you know, resume speed. Well, since we're in the speed zone, they tell us to basically go left on the highway. None of us validated the waypoint. And so basically we're doing 130 kilometers an hour on the highway with everybody's tracker, you know, going screaming at us, what, you know, with these beeps. So that was the first thing I remember, is, you know, just doing this 2-hour liaison with everyone's beeper just wide open. Well, if I had finished the stage, there was a service point where my team would have been to give me some clothes to, you know, get on the liaison. So after the race, you know, if you're on the highway, you kind of cool off. It gets cold on the highway, like with the wind and everything. Well, since I had never reached it, none of us did. None of us had jackets. And so to fix that, the organization gave us these really cheesy green trash bags. So we're all covered in these green, cheesy trash bags to try and, you know, keep us warm. Our beepers are going off. And then all of a sudden, halfway through, you know, it starts pouring rain. And so, oh yeah. And even worse, I don't have enough gas to make it to or at least at that time, I thought I didn't have enough gas to make it to the end of the liaison. Like I I thought I needed to stop somewhere because I had spilled gas. I just didn't think I didn't have enough. Yeah. So I'm on the highway with everybody. Our beepers are going off. It's pouring rain. I remember being really, really cold, and I'm shivering, and I'm thinking, shit, like I don't think I have enough gas. I don't see any gas station. Like we're in the big open desert, and I'm thinking, oh shit, like I'm going to be here for a while. If I run out, I'm going to be really, really cold. And, but it's like 3 PM. I'm thinking, oh crap, like this could be a long day. Well, it starts pouring even more. We're going through the canyons on the road, and it's really beautiful. We end up getting into the bivouac. Luckily, I made it on gas. I get warm. I figured out that somehow I had crushed the front left fuel pump. I either cased something or hit it. I basically disintegrated the front fuel pump. So that ended up being my issue on the front tanks.
Okay.
Yeah. So luckily, we have another one. The team's awesome. As soon as I get in, I just drop the bike off. I go get Orem. They fix the bike. And after that, it was kind of a blur, to be honest. I between 4, 5, and 6, I remember just riding better, just enjoying the scenery. Nothing stood out. And by that point, I kind of had something happen every day. So I'm like, I just want smooth days at this point. Mm-hmm. And I think it was stage 7. They, that was the day another day they canceled. Mm-hmm. They,
because of the lakes.
They ended up, because of the lakes, and they ended up just having us do just this big long liaison. And like I said, liaisons are the sketchiest part. What they also don't tell you, or what people try and tell you, but you don't know until you do it, is they are so cold. When you get to Yanbu or the other side of the continent, it's warm. Like it feels like home, or like California for me. But when you start the liaisons, at 4 or 5 in the morning, and there's wind chill and there's no sun, it's cold. And I, thankfully, through Andrew Short and Skylar and Mason, everybody, they kept hammering me on how cold it is. I ended up bringing a snowmobile onesie.
Nice. And it sounds like that's what saved your ass. Oh, did I lose you? I think I might have lost him. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Victor with the Chasing Waypoints podcast. Hey, super quick break in the episode. Want to talk really quick about Spotify for podcasters. If you are interested in getting your story out to the world, starting your own podcast, it is super, super simple. Head on over to spotify.com/podcasters and get all of the information. It is a one-stop shop. You can edit, you can do Q&A, you can do video podcasts, all sorts of different things in one platform. They handle all of the distribution for you, so it is super, super simple and effective. So with that being said, guys, let's get back to the episode. I should have like a technical difficulty thing, but this is interesting. I will wait for him to come back on here in just a second. But I've heard a few things. Why did it? No, I'm not done recording. All right, so it's interesting because I've heard from a few people now that. Oh, let me mute. I've heard from a few people now that it seems like the fuel system, the fuel thing on the rally replicas is kind of delicate. And I guess there's certain parts to the system that are very finicky, with even a dust particle, like one-way valves not working properly and stuff like that. I know Mason had problems with fueling. I think that ended up being a harness, but there seems to be a lot that revolves around that particular system on the rally bike, which is interesting. I mean, obviously KTM's got it figured out, and they switch parts, they do all of this stuff. And I just think it could be, it just could in the end be dumb luck, but it seems to be a common theme. I mean, and we've heard in the past too with the organization where they accidentally or inadvertently ended up getting contaminated gas that had water in it, and then that causing issues as well. So, I mean, it seems like everything fuel has some stuff to kind of you got to watch out for, which is interesting to hear. But it was good to hear that it was a fuel pump issue and it was able to get fixed. Jacob, you back?
Yes. Sorry about that. My mom called me. I couldn't figure out how to turn it off. Sorry about that.
No worries. So yeah, I was just kind of talking about it. It seems like the fueling on the rally bikes, the RFRs, seems to be a thing. I mean, in this case, for you, what you figure out, obviously, it was the fuel pump, which I still wouldn't know how you could smash it, but or damage it. But I've heard of one-way valves, or there's like a splitter valve in there that also, if that gets dirty, if it gets even a grain of sand, it can wreak havoc in the system. So.
Yeah, there's quite a few things. Like, they're pretty sturdy bikes, but honestly, they're a little delicate. Like, to your point, the front fuel pump is directly under or above the skid plate where the bottom pickup is. So if you case it, yeah, you can crush it, and you have to be a little bit delicate. And I think what you're talking about, I think Ace ended up having that issue where a little bit of sand got in, and I gotta learn this for myself, but I think it either drains the fuel or there can be an issue there.
Yeah, I think now that I remember, I think what happens is the fuel doesn't shut off, so it overfills the back tank or something like that, and then and
it just like drains out or something. It just goes wide open, I think.
Mm-hmm. Which you're out in a remote place, you might need that gas, and I feel like it's better in the tank than on the desert floor. Okay, so where we left off, liaison. All the rain. Stage 7 canceled. You guys did a big long liaison. Now, let me ask you this before we go to. These were in the early stages, and you're a racer. Was there a moment where your brain went back to, okay, this is just another rally. This is just another race. I'm here to put results and focus. Was there a moment in time where your brain you had that mind shift?
I don't know. I feel like I was alert and pretty much on the whole time. I woke up every day not needing coffee. I think because I was so mentally alert and just go. Going back to, I was like a little schoolgirl. I'm just like so excited to be there. I don't think I ever really shut off the whole time I was there. And, that was good and bad. Even on the liaisons, I'm like super focused, thinking about, I don't want to have an issue on the liaisons. I don't want to go the wrong way. So to answer your question, I think I was just wide open the whole entire time. And even the stages from the start to where I was kind of cautious to where I'm getting halfway through, mm-hmm. you're going wide open. Like you ain't messing around. Like it's hare and hound pace. You're going wide open. Mm-hmm. And yeah,
which is, that's really crazy. So this is, the technical side of it. So you could go wide open. You grew up in the desert here. You know how to read the terrain. You're getting to an area. You know that there's a corner coming up. You can see the braking chop. There's indicators that this is a corner coming up. If it's maybe desert you're not 100% familiar with, what's reading the terrain out there like? It sounds like it's all pristine, so it seems harder to gauge, maybe, or...
Yeah, so a couple of differences is, by the time I get there, because I'm starting in the teens to 20s, it's burned in. You don't have to do a lot of navigating. I was really worried that the navigation was going to be really, really difficult, but honestly, it's not that bad, at least. And I heard this year wasn't that bad of navigation. You can pretty much follow the track. And, if you're going down a straight track and then the next tulip is to turn right at a four-way, yeah, you kind of look ahead and you start to cut the corner, make sure there's no waypoint, and you're, trying to cut the corner. Mm-hmm. Where I don't know if I struggle or I'm just getting used to it is, here in the States in the desert, if there's a rise or there's something coming up, we have signs. They tell us to slow down, or you just assume they didn't mark it and you kind of check up. Mm-hmm. Over there, you trust the road book. And I actually learned this in Sonora. I was practicing it and it clicked a little bit more, is if it doesn't say there's a danger in the road book, you do not let off. Like on a road, If there's rises, if there's slight rises, and they either say one danger or there's nothing, you have to go wide open, to make up that time. And it's not a lot of time, but it's a couple seconds here and there. And if you do that over 2 hours, that's where you make up or lose a lot of time. So that's the issue at Sonora, where on day 3 people were hitting these washouts. It kind of clicked for me, because it was a totally smooth road that we're going to go wide open until you tell us something is there. And if you don't tell us something is there, then we're going to go wide open into these catastrophic, things. And so, yeah, reading, I learned that at Sonora, but that was one of the things I could have done better, is not letting off, if there was nothing there, because over there, like I said, it's smoother and there's just not as much wear and tear. So you can hold it wide open, longer. And, so that's a little bit more into reading that terrain. And that's how you go faster at rally.
Mm-hmm. So this is, so it's interesting. I think there was a case that was made for road books being safer than GPS tracks. And a GPS track is kind of the same, right? It could be a wide open road that you're riding, and you're just following the line on the GPS, but you're on the road, so you know it. But where the road book comes in, and why the road book would be safer, is the assumption is there's no danger marked, then that means you're good to go.
Yeah, so, I'm starting to believe that too, and even with marked courses, I think rally terrain's a little bit smoother, a little bit faster than normal desert here. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit easier to mark. If you've ever raced a desert race here, there's millions of dangers and it's rougher. Mm-hmm. I'm starting to agree with you that, road books might be safer if they're verified and, a proper person makes them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they might be safer. I'm starting to believe that.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I saw, being in the operations room for the PCO, Peace
Sonora?
Control Office for Sonora. Yeah, I got to see how they create notes in road books, and I'm very surprised that they're not using like Rally Navigator. The program they use, I basically see now that it's like Microsoft Paint, but it's been rebranded.
Is that the River Notes?
River Notes, yeah. And they kind of showed me, one of the guys showed me, like, look, this is how we have to, because it came up with, the day in Sonora where they had to change the cap heading because there was a mistake in the cap heading. It was funny because they asked, like, okay, well, what would you do? They asked me, and then they asked the other guy that was helping on tracking on the world side. And I'm like, well, I'm going to follow the arrow, because I know in Rally Navigator that, the arrow is pointing to the next point. It automatically does that. You have to purposely go in and modify it if you want to. So the assumption is the arrow is correct and not the note, not the cap heading, but not in their case. They have to draw everything.
Okay. I'm curious on River Notes because I make a lot of road books and I'm a big Rally Navigator guy. Mm-hmm. And obviously it's the best software out there. On the Sonora thing, I agree with you. The issue was the cap was off. Mm-hmm. And I mean, obviously I'm pumped because I figured out the issue. Mm-hmm. But you came to a 4-way and it said to head straight. And at that note, it was the end of the old tracks that we had used from the day before. Mm-hmm. So preceding that, it would have been smoother. Mm-hmm. Using Rally Navigator, what you were saying, if you drag a note or if you drag a point to the next note, it literally points the arrow on your tulip the correct direction. Mm-hmm. Where I think they had an issue is they were making the road book and they had dragged the point to somewhere, and they basically clicked again and made a different point, and so it took the cap from the first direction, and I think that's where they had the issue. But using Rally Navigator and knowing the arrow is going to point you, I think that was a little bit of knowledge, so I agree with you, and I think it ended up helping me figure that out.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I know it's kind of hard to explain.
No, yeah, and that was the from my understanding is the cap heading was a remnant from, it was the way that the course was going initially when they did the recce on it, when they designed it. But then when they made the course change, they only changed one part of it. And I mean, at that point now, knowing how they use like river notes, how to make the road book, it would have been 50-50. You know, if I would have known, like, if I would know, oh, they used Rally Navigator to make it, then I would have been 100% sure that the arrow was correct. But once they showed me how they have to do it, and it's basically hand draw everything in the note, I was like, oh, dude, this was totally 50-50. So you could have gone with the cap and still would have been correct, or you could have gone with the arrow and been correct based on that.
Yeah. And you know, the problem was then you had to go like 4 kilometers to the next point. So it's a long ways to verify if you're going the right way.
Exactly. Yeah. Then becomes the game. Okay. Do I open the waypoint? Do I go back? Do I, you know, what do I was just in awe. Once I saw that, I'm like, dude, how long does it take you to make a road book then at this point? Because I mean, it's like, I mean, in a few minutes you can clear. I mean, it took me, I'm working on a project that I did roughly about 800 kilometers and in about 2 hours. Mind you, this was just like basics, right? Not full decoration. It's just arrows at important intersections and things like that. And that was a couple of hours. I don't know how these guys do it with all the detail that they got to put into a road book. You know, sorry, from someone that likes to make road books, it takes me about an hour to do about 20 kilometers. And you just got to get a process, and it's just like a mind numbing task for me, like where I don't have to think. I just work and like, it takes about an hour to do 20 kilometers. So yeah, it takes quite a bit to make a road book. And even mine aren't verified, you know, because if I go and verify them, then I've ridden them, and there's not as much dangers. I'm only going off what I can see on the computer. Okay. That's, I was like, okay, well, we got to get back to the Dakar stages, but I was going to ask you, do you use a GPX file, like a previously ridden track that you have, and then make it a road book, or do you just wing it from the map?
And we can get into this. Later, I wing it. I go to areas that I know, and that's a little bit of a downfall because I know the area, but if I know where the boundaries are, I'll just pick stuff. And depending on what I'm feeling, I'm like, you know, let's make one that looks like a maze. Let's just go back and forth. And I have purpose with the road books I make and things I want to work on. But yeah, I just kind of pick and choose where I want to go. If I want to go explore a new area, like sometimes I'll take a safe route there and take a more difficult, tricky on the way back, you know, just because I don't know where I am in the desert trying to explore new areas. So, you know, I like to mix it up.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, you have to get experience with different situations, notes. I mean, all these things. I'm thinking in my head, you know, even if you know where you're going, it's like, I don't know. I don't know if it would be worth like practicing that. I was like, okay, you randomly put in the road book somewhere. Okay, at this point, your cap heading, your cap reader is no longer working, or your Odo is malfunctioning. You know, like basically simulate something going off, and now you got to go like by. Which is crazy that people can do this, is judge distance, you know, look and say, yep, that's a kilometer away, and be pretty damn accurate at that.
You know, but that's what makes a really good rally racer. Like, I'll do road books, short ones. Like I make them basic without a, you put the info there, but you hide either the cap direction or you hide the arrows. Like, so the arrows are all heading straight, but you just put a cap instead of the arrow. And you can either cover your instruments. You can cover certain instruments. Like if you want to practice cap heading, you just cover your cap reader and try and figure it out, you know, and be aware of what direction you're heading. So yeah, there's different techniques and stuff. And actually who taught me that and who's really, really good at it is Jimmy Lewis.
Yeah. I've heard some of his drills, and they could be pretty challenging.
Yeah, God, he made me want to just quit. Like I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I was feeling pretty confident. You know, I made a couple road books for him, and he thought they were good for never having seen a Dakar road book. And I'm like, yeah. And then we go and do these drills and I'm just like, oh man, I have such a long way to go. But it's good. It's what I need. And it's what's going to make you better.
Yeah, true. Yeah. I mean, it's just experience, right? I mean, that's the name of the game on this. The more notes you get under your belt, I'm sure it's the easier it gets to read them and go the distance.
Yeah. But so back to Dakar.
Yeah,
so second half, they canceled day 7. So we just did this long liaison. That was the first marathon stage. It was impromptu.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up not bringing a tent. So they give you a big bag and you can take a tent. You can take, your personal belongings. I ended up not taking a tent. I just took a mat. I slept in this big giant tent with everybody. And I mean, it is nuts to butts. You lay your sleeping mat down and you're literally next to another sleeping mat of somebody. It was so packed. And I just remember at that point, Paul Neff hadn't slept for like 36 hours or something. And he had an issue and I forget what it was, but yeah, he hadn't slept. He gets there and I remember him laying down at like 6 o'clock at night, and he's laying on this mat and everyone else is talking. And all of a sudden we hear him snoring and I have a video of it. He is so tired. And we're all just laughing at it because we know it's been a really long road for him. And his snoring was just really, really funny. And my Danish friend Thomas, so we were near Paul and we were setting up our stuff and he just goes, Jacob, you need to quiet your friend. Like we're not going to sleep with him snoring. And so we just bust out laughing and we ended up letting Paul sleep just because we knew he was tired. But it was just one of the small memories that was really funny about Dakar was listening to Paul, snore.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine. Yeah, he had to go at it. It was not an easy, and to get there and do this. So, I mean, it's cool that you guys let him sleep, but I can imagine.
Yeah. And like, we know everyone's, we're tired and I can't imagine how tired he is. So it's just an understanding, it's like a brotherhood, at this point, we're all just trying to get through it. We're all just having a good time. So, no, like I said, it was something I remember about Dakar, but, so yeah, do that. I had done a spreadsheet
mm-hmm.
on the days, they give you info on the stages.
Mm-hmm.
And I took, they tell you the first bike's going to start at whatever, and the first bike's expected at whatever. Well, I took that info and I basically broke it down into sections. I'm like, all right, this stage is going to take 2 hours, 3 hours, yada, yada. And the pattern was all the way up until the rest day, which was after stage 8, mm-hmm. was really, really big days. They were progressively getting bigger. And I think 6, 7, and 8 were the largest, and time on the bike. After the rest day, it was significantly less. We started heading towards the dunes, and they were just generally smaller, and you're pretty much on the downslope of the Dakar. Mm-hmm. On stage 8, it was either the second or third longest day, and I remember that day with the rain, we were on the bikes for like 12 or 13 hours. That was a really, really long day. And I remember, and this is why the liaisons are sketchy. We were coming back to what I think was Riyadh, and it's a major city. Mm-hmm. And it's raining, and we had a long liaison. It's raining. We're coming in. There was an issue with the road book. And I remember just coming in and we're just, we're on the side of the highway. We're weaving in and out of traffic, and I had never split lanes before. And we're just doing all these, just doing all these things that, I don't know how I feel about,
that maybe kind of might be slightly questionable.
Yeah, slightly questionable. And I'm just like, yeah, I kind of had to stop myself, and I'm like, all right, like I'm just going to kind of relax here. Like there's no rush on the liaison, but for some reason we're all rushing because we're trying to get back and, because we're cold and stuff. But yeah, so after stage 8, I pretty much, I had a little bit of a mindset change. I was like, at stage 8, I was tired. Mentally, I was tired. Physically, I was doing all right. To everyone, physically, it's not that bad of a race. This Dakar was one of the hardest in a while. I didn't think it was that bad physically, but mentally, it's a really, really, really tough grind. And it's the toughest mental grind I've ever done for sure. And that's where they wear you down. It's just little jabs here and there, and they just wear you down. They just grind you. And I was tired mentally, at stage 8, but luckily we had the rest day. My mindset shifted because I had done this spreadsheet, and I kind of knew the stages coming up were shorter. And I was like, I was compartmentalizing what I had to do for the next, what it was, 6 days, I think. So it just made it more digestible.
Yeah.
So, rest day, you don't do much. You do laundry. My team has a washing machine. They service the bikes. You still get up at 5:30 in the morning. It's well deserved, but I kind of personally, I'm like, I'd rather keep going. And you just kind of hang out, and then, the stage is on, we start heading, east towards the empty quarter, which is, just a really, really big open set of sand dunes. And, it just starts getting more dunes. The stages get shorter. I started messing with my bike as far as clicker settings a little bit. I went stiffer. From then on, my stages got better. I think my best finish was 15th on the second to last day. I had ended up riding with Mathieu Dovizzi. I don't know how we did it, but we were going through the dunes. There was a lot of dune drops. We ended up looking at each other and giving each other the 5 kilometer signal, where we just held up, like a 5 or a hand for 5 digits. And it just sort of clicked between us that each of us would lead for about 5 kilometers, taking our dues, going off the drops first. And it ended up working out for us because that was our best finish, the second to last day. And that's just because we were switching and, just trying to go faster.
Yeah. I that's kind of curious. And what do you think it was like when you were following, is there a mental fatigue associated with having to take drop after drop after drop when you're leading? Is that what it is? Yeah. And maybe it was a bit of a break.
Yeah. So throughout, I would have thought overall there would have been more dune drops, in Abu Dhabi, there's a lot. These dunes in Saudi weren't that bad. It was only a couple of days. But yes, it's, if you follow somebody, you can I learned how people were going over dunes. If they were gassing it over big dunes, over the points, or they were dropping really fast, you just learn these things, you can pretty much close up on them, and it helps tremendously to follow. So yeah, it just gives you a nice break. And when I would lead, it feels like you're going slow, or it feels like you're going fast. And then when you get behind somebody, it feels like you're going slow. So there is a little bit of a change there, but yeah, it definitely helps to switch off and have somebody else lead for you.
Yeah. I feel I feel more than anything, it's like a mental thing. Once if there's a bunch of drops in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, each time you hit a drop, there's a question mark. Well, is the next one going to be just as bad, or is it not? And I feel like it maybe helps tire you mentally quicker. And then the pace starts to slow down. And if you're switching off, I feel like, okay, you can now, like you said, you kind of relax a little bit. You're not as tense, and you're just, you're back to riding again.
Yeah. And, and I'm obviously I'm trying to go as fast as possible, and you got to kind of send it off these dunes a little bit. You're going up wide open up to these dudes, slamming the brakes over the top and jumping, down them and just, taking what's on the other side. So if you can have somebody else do that for a little bit, then yeah, it definitely helps.
Yeah, man, that just seems crazy to me.
Yeah.
And then I know what happens if you don't. If you don't do it, that means you get stuck at exactly 6 inches from the top. And now what would have been a 2-minute dune ride is now a 20-minute adventure to try and get back up the stupid thing.
Yeah, God. And I only had that happen. Actually, I got stuck on 2 dunes. One, because the transition was so steep that I just bottomed out going up it, and I knew it wasn't going to make it. Then the other time is what you're saying. I forget what I did. I just didn't have enough speed. I'm going over the top, and I'm like starting to angle off, and I ended up just digging in like 6 inches before the top, and I'm just like, oh my God. But luckily, I ended up just holding it wide open and pushing it up over.
That's crazy. Nice.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, it's part of the adventure. So, okay. So now we're winding it down. Last part of the stages.
Yeah. So the last day, everyone is really excited. The morale is very high. You actually start in reverse order. So from the previous day, the slowest finisher starts first, and then it goes backwards. The last day was definitely the sketchiest day. It had rained just a little bit, and we're by the coast. So the terrain is kind of this slippery, mucky kind of clay mud, like along the beaches. It's a short stage. It's supposed to be kind of ceremonial, like you just get through it. Not a lot like happens. I remember there was a speed zone that was 90 kilometers an hour, and I could barely keep the 90. And the reason they had it was just because this road was really, really muddy. And that's where if you see in the recap videos where people getting stuck and stuff, it was just this muddy mess. And I remember trying to go the speed limit and just going sideways and almost crashing. And I'm like, I have about 30 minutes to go. I'm not going to throw this away. And so I just kind of took in the scenery, finished the stage, and you get in and everybody's cheering for you. Your team's there, and it's just it's a great feeling to finish.
I can imagine after, so many days, the mental fatigue, everything, just a whole sum of emotions and everything. And then all of a sudden it's done.
Yeah. And, I was almost, you have this sense of accomplishment, but I was almost a little bummed. I remember the second to last day when I had my good finish, I'm on the liaison, I'm happy. I have a 2-hour ride time. I'm like, I am so sad. Tomorrow is my last day, even though I'm mentally tired. Like, I have to wait a whole year to do this again. And like I said, you get to the finish line, you feel a sense of accomplishment. But I was almost sad. I'm like, man, I have so much to do. Like, I'm already thinking about next year, and I'm like, get me home. I have so much to do.
We talked about that at the end of Sonora. And it was funny. When you're there, you don't really think about it, but it's like the post rally. It's like the post rally depression. You start thinking about it, and you're like, man, I wish. And I'm not even anybody involved with rally afterwards. The experiences, the fun, the everything, the challenges, the mental draining, the times you just wanted to ride off into the sunset. All of these things, and you think there's no way I'm going to miss it. I just want to be home, and then you get home, and you're like,
Yeah. And, at that point I had nothing planned. I'm like, I know I'm planning to go back to Dakar, but it's like, you spent a whole year living and breathing this thing, and now it's over. It's like, yeah, the Dakar after depression is definitely real. And I feel like that's after something major for anybody that has a big goal. You're just like, man, like, what do I do now? But you just gotta enjoy it for a day or two, and then, plan your next goal and, get back after it.
Yeah. And then you go right back to the grind.
Yeah, for sure.
So after the Dakar, you guys switched gears because you knew Sonora was coming.
Yeah. So, I got back from Dakar. I will say the worst day I had in Saudi was the last day I was there.
Mm-hmm.
So you get done on I forget, it was like Sunday,
mm-hmm.
you know, and if anyone that doesn't know, Saudi is a dry country. So there's no alcohol, which, you know, is fine, but the celebration is a little lackluster.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's no wild parties after.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit of a bummer, but everyone, as soon as you're done, everyone starts packing up, you know, because they got to get their bikes to the containers. They got to get shipments out and stuff. Well, that's all done Sunday. I didn't know, but my team was pretty much leaving Monday morning.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up leaving Monday night with Mo, Wolfie, and a couple other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I pretty much had the whole day in Saudi just by myself. But at that point, like, I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to be home. So I just laid in the hotel and I didn't do anything. But that was just a really long day, just
Mm-hmm.
hanging out. I wish I had left earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyways, I get home. I'm on a normal, you know, normal economy seat, which was fine. Whatever, plane ride is fine. I get home. I was trying to regulate my schedule, and I went and took my wife's spin class on Tuesday. So I basically got home Monday.
Mm-hmm.
I got home Monday, and I was going to take my wife's spin class on Wednesday. Sorry.
Yeah.
I took it, and I don't know if I didn't realize how tired I was, but it basically sent me into a tailspin, and I got really, really sick for about a week and a half. I was pretty much on the couch in a bed. I could not move. And I was like, what did I just do? And so that is a lesson learned. As soon as you come back from Dakar, like, just don't do a thing.
Yeah.
And so yeah, Dakar is now done. I'm feeling better. I'm waiting for the team. They basically came over. They sent 3 bikes over, a bunch of parts, and they landed in California, went up to Portland, grabbed Ace Nielsen's motorhome and trailer, because that's what we were going to take
Mm-hmm.
down to Sonora. They grabbed it, came down here. I took Conrad Dabrowski
Mm-hmm.
around. He rode my wife's 350, showed him all the tracks. He went to Glen Helen, he went to Paris, and he went to Kauai.
Mm-hmm.
And so he enjoyed that. We did one day of road books, and basically, yeah, got ready and went down to Sonora.
It's just this like whirlwind of, you know, getting from one rally to another. And I mean, I think, and it was a few months, but I bet it didn't feel that way either.
No, honestly, it came up really quick. And I don't know how the guys follow the World Rally Championship, because I think in a month and a half after Dakar was Abu Dhabi. And I'm like, dude, there's no way I can make Abu Dhabi.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I hadn't planned for it, but to try and do that and then come to the States for Sonora was hard. And what you're saying, like, yeah, the time went so quick in between Dakar and Sonora.
Was there, what did you do, like, prep wise? Was there some stuff that you learned, you know, okay, from the Dakar, this is what I need to work on for Sonora? You mentioned it earlier, right? About, you know, how reading the road book, like trusting the road book a little more. That was one, but was there anything else?
You know, I didn't have a ton of prep. I took a little bit of time for myself, a little bit of that Dakar depression set in. And I was like, man, I don't know if I can go through this year again to like try and get to Dakar again. And so I took a little bit of time for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was still working out and stuff, but I ended up figuring it out. I did some self-help, and I decided I was going to race Sonora, and I basically had 2 days of road books between Dakar and Sonora. And actually, it was probably the best thing. I came into Sonora after, you know, having been to Dakar. I came in really relaxed. I think it was because it was on my home continent. I was just having fun. You know, like I said, I was pretty much alert for the whole time I was in Dakar, and being in like my home continent, just relaxing, having a good time, seeing people. I just had a lot more fun. And I think that was the best prep I could have done for Sonora.
Okay. Yeah, is just kind of step away for a minute and
just get a second look on life, and just come in. I came in recharged for sure. I was definitely amped to be in Sonora.
Nice. So let's talk the stages. I mean, they changed. Obviously, the event changed a little bit, being a round of the World Rally Raid Championship. And you had been there previously 2 years before. I remember you were there. I think you ended up finishing it on, I think, the last day, right? You were on Mason's bike, or the last 2 days?
Yeah. So in 2020, Sonora was my very first rally. So it was cool to do Sonora, Abu Dhabi, Dakar, and then come back to my first rally, Sonora. The first time I was there, I had a KLX 450. I ended up blowing it up in the first 30K. I was right near the, I don't know what they call it, the post, or the cross that's in the dunes in Sonora.
Kino Cross. Uh-huh.
Kino Cross. I literally blew the bike up right there. So I got rescued. I made my helper, Larry, drive back to Brawley, who met my dad, who got my spare motor, brought it back to Mexico. We ended up putting it in. I ended up blowing that up the next day because my lack of knowledge on how to jet bikes. I jetted it so lean, and I never had to jet bikes. I was on the bubble of carbureted bikes. So I never had to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So lesson learned. I blew that motor up. We drove down to Puerto Penasco, and I think we were just going to go explore and play some golf. Mason came up and he's like, "You should race my bike." And I'm thinking, no, I'm out of the rally. I can't do that. Well, we started thinking about it, and we talked to Darren about it, and they ended up letting me race the last 2 days. So I took one day off, and then I raced the last 2 days. But thanks to Mason, those were the only 2 full days I had, and those were the 2 best days I could have gotten, because the experience was super valuable. And I was like, yeah, I like this rally. I think it's fun. And I ended up crashing Mason's bike on the very last day, not far from the finish, broke his tower off, bent the road book holder, just screwed the whole bike up. So it was a very expensive trip for me, to say the least. Yeah. But it was so worth it, because I discovered my love for rally. So it was a very expensive, valuable learning experience. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and then and the memory of it, and it's interesting you say that, because I remember. So the tower that was on that bike is from Chris at Moto Minded, and yes. I know the windshield was broken and the road book holder, but I mean, the bike cartwheeled, so it used it as a pogo stick, and I was pretty surprised. I mean, it could have been a lot worse, really bent out, but it wasn't, I guess, too bad. I think it was just the road book, which I think is the weakest part of that whole thing, is the actual road book holder itself. Yeah. And,
again, thanks for Mason for letting me use the bike. I had to get some new equipment for him. So I was like, it was a memory.
Yeah. But now here's the question. Cowie, that was your ride. You were always on the Cowies, but I think recently you've switched to Husky. Did that ride have anything to do with it? Because that was a KTM, right?
Yeah. So Mason's bike was a KTM. The bike I rode was a 2008 KLX 450. Mm-hmm. What I race here in the States is a current year KX 450. So a lot of things are different. And the reason I rode that bike was the tranny was wider. It's similar to a Honda first gen 450X. I can get a bigger tank. I can get a 4.5 gallon tank, so I can make Sonora Rally mileage. Mm-hmm. Wide ratio, and it's just a little bit more durable of a bike. So that's why I was like, I'm going to try that out. I was loyal to Cowie at that point, 'cause they were helping me, and I just thought it'd be cool to do a green rally bike. You see all these Austrian brands. I'm like, it'd be cool to do a green one.
Yeah, something a little bit different.
Yeah, and I didn't know any better. And even leading up to Sonora, I had a handlebar mount, and I had ordered the Sonora Rally tower I was going to put on it, mm-hmm. and ended up getting lost in the mail. So I tried to make my own. Yeah, I ended up trying to make my own tower. The tower broke off a couple days before, like just within a couple miles. I was like, yeah, that was a terrible idea. So I ended up just running the handlebar mount, which worked tremendously for all the things, practice I had done and during the race.
Yeah. Yeah, that was and we were using, that was the Rally Moto Shop ones, the bar mount setup, or what did you use? Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, I was like, I had it at the time. I'm like, yeah, I want a real rally tower, because I had never had one, and like, I know the handlebar mount is like the first step you take, and I just, like I said, I wanted a real rally tower, so I was like, not embarrassed, but I wanted a full rally bike, or to feel like it.
Yeah.
But going, where I am now, I'm like, I would happily take the handlebar mount because it's so easy to put on, and I think it's durable. It works great. So it's just change in thought and how I view that now.
Yeah. Now it's well, I mean, in that, I have the Moto Minded tower that I've been working, and that was what I was going to put on my 501. But then I had this like minimalist mind shift, and now I'm all about this whole rally light thing. Just get something low, compact, easy to take on and off.
Yeah, and unless I'm at the point, like, unless you have the real, like, the RFR, so my Husky, I went and got a Husky because I wanted to practice for Dakar. And I wanted something, durable, and I wanted just a more real rally light bike. I love the Sonora tower. It's a little bit cumbersome to put on if you've never, if you're drilling into a frame. But if you're going to leave that bike as a rally bike, I believe that's the way to go. But honestly, if you're just getting into it, the handlebar mount is pretty awesome too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's not that like complicated to put on, and it does add a bit of adjustability, depending on your height and that kind of stuff. To be honest, I've seen where they can kind of come loose, or they can rotate, or they could do all of this stuff. But, that's me seeing it on guys that are out there. I mean, absolutely just hammering on these bikes. And to be honest, that's not the majority of us. I mean, that's something like more for you and some of the other racers that have done it. But even then, they hold up pretty well.
Yeah, and honestly, I've never, I've heard of having, or people having theirs rotate, which I've never had mine rotate, thankfully. Yeah. And it just allows you to ride the bike harder, and it acts more like a normal bike, which I think is something to be considered.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to deal with that was, I'm trying to remember who I was literally just talking about this with somebody, and it was that consideration, like they were, I'm trying to remember, but that was the whole thing. It was like, okay, well, we don't want to necessarily put a rally tower on a bike for a guy that is used to racing hare scrambles, or is used to racing short, fast sprint races, because they're not going to be necessarily used to dealing with, they're going to see some whoops, or they're going to see something rough, and they're going to charge it, get over the bars, and next thing you know, they've got a road book in their face, smashed road book, bloody nose, that kind of thing, because they're not used to dealing with a windshield or a rally tower, where I think, having the road book holder on the bars a little lower, a little bit, more compact, is probably the best transition.
Yeah. And, that's the thing too, is without a tower or anything, the normal, what I would consider the normal style in desert racing, like, is very Danny Hamill here in the States. Like, you lean over the front. I do that. But when you get on the rally bike, what you're saying, you can't lean over as much, or if you hit something or whatever, you can get a road book to the face, which I've done, which is something definitely to consider. And our terrain, like I said many times, is just rougher here. So it's nice to have a more enduro bike. And, we're talking about the rally light builds. I almost feel like with the handlebar or something even smaller, it's like a rally light bike. There's like three. There's like the full rally bike, there's a rally light, and then there's like an enduro rally bike, and
I feel like we need to come up with a name for that.
I feel like I like the rally light.
Yeah,
sure, because I feel like that's widely known, and that describes it pretty well. And the thing too is, road books are they're becoming easier to get here, but they're not super easy to get. And the thing is, unless you have a RFR with 9 gallons of fuel, most of the bikes are 3 to 5 gallons. So having, you don't need these big, long road books or trying to get road books that are shorter for these smaller tanks. There's just so many different facets like of rally here in the States, I guess was what I'm getting at.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, and we have, which is really interesting, right? That you mentioned that is, I did see and hear or was party to a few aha moments of things that get done in rally here that don't get done elsewhere. And I think that comes from the, just the terrain and the racing culture here is very different when you go, across the world. And so I agree with you. And that's an idea that I've kind of been toying with is, the average hare scramble bike is built with a 3-gallon tank, right? I mean, it's made to go 80 miles at race pace. And I'm like, well, it's easy enough to do a 100-kilometer road book, and you get a 100-kilometer road book, and then you get a basic, setup that can be bolted on and off of the bike, even battery powered. You don't even have to wire it to the bike. And now you could literally go anywhere, throw this on somebody's bike, and they'll be out for an hour or two, ride a road book.
Yeah. And honestly, leading up to Dakar, I was on my KLX and I was on the Husky bike. So I had like 4 to 4.5 gallons on each bike. So honestly, my road books were all like 90 to like 130. So that way I could get lost. I didn't have to worry about fuel. I could have somebody come with me, just to follow me, so I'm not out there by myself. And, and
they didn't need to have 10 gallons of gas. You didn't need to hire a chase crew to meet you halfway or,
it's just, I mean, like you said, we do things here a little bit different. I know that's what's cool about rally. You can do a lot of different, ways to do it. There's different ways to skin a cat.
Yep. And then, so Sonora Rally this year. Stages, what do you think? There was a big difference, right? Not going to the dunes this time, the big dunes.
Yeah. I was having a great time in Sonora. The stages were awesome. Really, really pretty scenery, a little bit of creosote bush. Like I'm used to in the California desert, a little bit of like the Arizona style with big cactus. I was a little bummed not to go to the dunes. I could do one big day of dunes and be fine, but to really not have any was kind of bumming. And actually the only section of, I guess, real dunes we had, I was riding with Mason. That was the day 3. No, was it day 3? Whatever day was the issue with the road book. I was riding with Mason and I let him lead out from the gas stop, and we got to the dunes and I'm following him. I'm like, I feel like I can pull us along faster. So, I ended up passing him and I ended up, charging, and I'm like, all right, like I'm going to lead us here and I'm going to make up time. Well, I ended up focusing too much on my riding and I blew right past the waypoint by like half a kilometer. And I was like, oh my God, you idiot. And so Mason ended up passing me back and then I couldn't catch him from there.
Yeah.
So lesson learned.
Yeah. No, and there was that was what I did here. And I know some of the background to it. And unfortunately there was local politics involved in the reason why they couldn't go to the dunes. But I did hear that the dunes the dune section you did get to run was choppier and just not flowy, and just it was a bit of a handful.
Yeah, they were all like, maybe 10 to 15 feet tall dunes, and like you're just jumping them, and there's a way the wind blows the dunes, and we were basically jumping off the back sides, and it was very very choppy and what you're saying, rough. And I was like, yeah, I feel good here. Like I felt confident on the rally bike. I'm having fun. So I'm just jumping off the dunes, casing everything, feeling good, and then missing a waypoint.
Yeah. That's how it happens. And that's why it's the mental game. And that's why it's
Yeah, but actually that I don't know if that set something off in me, because after I went back, got the waypoint, I rode like an angry schoolgirl, and but I was on point. I was like,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going as fast as I can ride,
Mm-hmm.
and or my navigation matches my riding speed is, I guess, what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Which, I mean, which is important. I think a lot of people, if you're getting into rally, it's like there's a strong definition between the two. You're either going to be really good at riding or you're going to be really good at navigating. And it takes a while to get both. If you're a really fast rider, at least from what I've seen, you could be a really fast rider, but it takes more time to slow down and to learn when to navigate. Or you're a really good navigator, you never miss a waypoint, but in the sections where it's go time, there's no time made up, there's no nothing. If anything, there's time lost.
Yeah, and enduro racing, Baja racing, National Herd Hound, I typically, or at least I don't really think. Like you think, but you're just in the zone. You're not really, you're in the flow state,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just going. In rally, or at least I haven't experienced it, I'm not in the flow state. I'm focused on making sure I hit the navigation and trying to ride. Mm-hmm. The only time I guess I did was when I rode like an angry schoolgirl, and after I lost the waypoint, was when I just didn't think. I was able to just feel the navigation. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's like you got to do both. Like that's what makes a really good rally racer. His ability to ride like you're not thinking, mm-hmm. but then navigate like you're not thinking as well. Like you're just feeling the navigation, and both are merging perfectly to create, top speed.
Yeah. Which is, that is an interesting thing, because I mean, to me, like, getting into rally and doing this and really just starting on the road book journeys and doing that, I know my riding ability isn't, where it needs to be. I still have to think about riding. It's tough to get into that state where I'm not thinking anymore, where I'm not nervous in the corners, where I'm not nervous in the rough, the whoops and stuff like that. And so there's one mental aspect of it, right? Because a lot of that is mental, because once you get to the point where you're confident in your riding ability, you stop thinking about it. And now you have 100% brain power for navigating.
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting, how you say it. So then it becomes which one is more important. And I don't know if in rally it's, like we said, you could be the fastest rider and you'll blow right by the waypoint. Or you be the best navigator and everybody blows by you on the way to the waypoint.
Yeah, I think it's both. And like going back to Dakar, mm-hmm. There's a speed limit. Mm-hmm. I forget. I think it's 160 kilometers an hour. I should know this, but in Dakar, you're doing 130, 140, and it's like, it's sandy. You're going up a slight grade. And one of the things I'm working on for next year is a bigger motor, not a bigger motor, but the factory motor, because mm-hmm. I remember being passed by people and I'm just going up these slight grades, doing about 130, and they're doing 140, 150 and not having the horsepower and no excuses, mm-hmm. not having the horsepower and just losing little bits of time, I think is a big part of rally too. Mm-hmm. I hate to say it's a little bit of a numbers game for horsepower, but it is a little bit. And I think that helps, make up time as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no. And I think that is definitely spot on. I mean, this was something that was said, post Sonora Rally, that there's, I think it was Skylar that kind of mentioned it, but you can't check up. You mentioned this earlier, a simple checkup, 1 second. Okay, the Dakar going into the last stage was 5 seconds between the leaders?
Yeah, some really, really close number.
Some just stupid. I mean, okay, check up 5 times. Good. I dare you to ride 200 miles and not check up 5 times.
Yeah.
It's like, it's crazy,
Yeah, just those little things add up.
Yeah. And but I mean, it's, and it's part of the experience. And yeah, I mean, I can, from racing off-road cars, I've seen that before. One's got just the right gearing, the right setup, and you're going up the sand wash and they're just like barely walking away. It's one thing when they blow by you. It's another one when they're just kind of tiptoeing away, just crawling away at this really stupidly slow speed that is annoying as hell because you're trying to think like, okay, what do I need? Do I need to keep clutching this thing? What do I need to do? This is stupid. How are they barely walking away?
Yeah. And it's like, I remember riding with Dumontier, you know, before we got to the guy that was injured. I'm like, we're going across these open deserts, and I didn't know who he was at this point. You know, I know of these people, but I have no gauge like at their speed. And I'm like, I'm going balls to the walls. Like I am tucked, you know, trying to stretch the throttle cable. And I'm like barely keeping up with this guy. And I'm like, who are these people? And it's just, it was a nice feeling to have that. I know in the States, I'm a pretty quick guy, but to go over there and be like, not sure if you can keep up. And, you know, I got my ass handed to me a little bit. It's just a nice feeling to race with people like that, to keep progressing. And yeah.
And I mean, and that's, you know, like you said, but now you have there's no way you would have a list of things to work on now if you hadn't gone the first time. So
yeah,
now
100%.
Now it's just a bit more focused. And I mean, speaking of which, like what, you know, can you share some of that? Like, or what are you mentioned now, like, you know, the motor side of things, you know, working on that. Is physical health, road book stuff. I mean, what are you working on?
So I'm working on a motor. That will be number one. Number two will be to get, I don't know what to call it. Some bikes have the GPS speed zone limiter.
Oh yeah.
That's another thing, you know, they don't, I mean, what you don't know is there's a lot of speed zones in rally, especially at the Dakar. And if you're going, you know, half a kilometer to 2 kilometers at a 30 kilometer an hour speed zone, if you're not going at 29, you're losing time. And if you do that, you know, 3, 4, 5 times, all the time you made up on somebody can be lost.
Yeah.
And, you know, another thing about rally is like, especially at Sonora, I learned as soon as you hit the speed zone, I am literally not looking at the trail. I'm only looking at my speed and making sure it's 1 to 2 miles or kilometers per hour below the speed limit. And I'm barely looking out of the foresight of my eye at the trail. Like I'm not even looking at the road bike. I'm just following the trail, trying to go as close as I can to the speed limit. And then looking at the meters counting down. And as soon as I hit the waypoint to go back to, you know, normal racing, then it's wide open. But that's something, you know, no one tells you, is like, you can lose a lot of time in the speed zones. And if you go too fast, you know, you get a penalty.
Oh yeah. No, you can lose. It's yours to lose. You either lose time obeying and being too cautious, or you lose time by just saying, screw it. And I did hear some stuff about, you know, certain, I think, and it's more the fly-by-wire bikes that they have the ability to limit the speed, like if it was cruise control.
Yeah.
And I mean, it sucks. I mean, you still got to be on it, but you know, there's that. And then I've also heard that the way that the speed zones start, you know, with the rally comp, it's different. There's a line in the sand, and it starts there instantly. You know, you have, I believe it's a 2-second buffer, which, I mean, you got to be on point. A 2-second buffer is nothing. So if you come in hot, you came in hot, and there's no way, you know, it'll catch you. But if you're like 1 kilometer over, okay, you could probably still save it. But my understanding is that with the ERTF units, it's like the start of the speed zone plus 100 meters or something like that. So, or something weird where I've heard that, yeah, the name of the game is you got to judge the distance and then charge it, because if you're not, the next guy is.
Yeah. So when you come in, it's hard to explain. Even this is one of the things I need to know better is when you come in and you hit the center of the start of the speed zone, you have I don't want to call it a grace period, but what you're saying, it's either 90, I think it is, 90 meters to slow down, and you'll see skid marks. And that's another indicator. is you're going wide open, and if you start seeing skid marks, you better hit the brakes. And that's another place you can lose time, is which I did in Dakar. I was slowing down way too early, like 1 to 200 meters before the speed zone, because I didn't have a full understanding or gauging distance, like where the speed zone started. But, doing that over and over adds up to lost time.
Yeah.
And it's just something in your control that you can work on. And so now I have a little bit of a system, and I think it's getting better. And that's one of the things I'm actually going to work on, is I'm going to make speed zone road books. I'm kind of experimenting where I'll make just a simple straight, maybe like an oval or something, road book, simple navigation, but I'll do speed zones and I'll place them at different sections and practice, stopping at the very last second and just becoming more confident at that aspect of it.
Yeah. Roping the bike in. And I get, for those playing the home game, that, if we're talking the same thing, it's when the light turns red, there's people that as soon as the light turns red, no matter how far away they are from the line, they just let off. And then there's people that, okay, there's the limit line. I just need to be stopped by the time I get to the limit line. So they'll just keep going 60 miles an hour right up to the red light and then get on the brakes on the last minute.
Yeah. And
that's the two types of people.
yeah, exactly. And I'm on, the latter end of the spectrum, trying to squeeze every last second out of it. And so yeah, I'm going to work on that. That's something I can control. Better motor. I made a bunch of road books last year. I'd only been to Abu Dhabi, which was all dunes, not a lot of tracks. I had never seen a Dakar road book. So I was making road books off what I saw. I literally would look up Google images of Dakar road books and try to make road books off of it, off of those photos. And so now, having been to Dakar, I have a better understanding of how they, make road books. And after having learned about verifying road books and, putting in dangers and not letting off, I'm trying to figure out if I have someone, maybe Nar or maybe my friend Larry, go verify road books for me and put in dangers, and then I'll add them just so I can go a little bit faster, practice that aspect, practice, navigation drills, what I was saying earlier, a little bit of Jimmy Lewis stuff. That's my weakest point. My road books that I use for my practice are very navigation heavy. The notes are not very far apart. I do it because I struggle with what I was saying earlier. Like, I would go wide open and I missed the waypoint. So I'm trying to overload myself with notes. Like, I don't need to ride a ton. I just need to do a lot of heavy navigation. So yeah, I'm going to work on some more heavy navigation stuff, work on speed zones. I felt pretty good on my physical prep. I'm young, like I'm pretty well in shape. I could have been a little bit better riding shape because I was fundraising. So I'm working on fundraising and trying to finish that up earlier, because I was getting the last of the money pretty much the week leading up to the race. So, working out and like being physically ready was kind of on the back burner. So I'm going to work on that a little bit more. I packed pretty well. I ended up taking 4 gear bags over and 4 back. I'm going to take a little bit less stuff over. My nutrition, everything was good. There's a little bit less I have to do. Like, I don't have to get my motorcycle license. I don't have to do certain things, so that should be easier. But honestly, just motor, try and get the speed zone limiter, practice some nav stuff here, and just go faster. And actually, another thing is I'm going to try to be more relaxed. Like I said before, I was really alert, kind of just, on call the whole time. And when I went to Sonora, I was just having fun. I'm going to try to have more fun there, just relax and, enjoy it more.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's it. I get, I'm trying to think, right? Like, rewinding back to what you were saying about the Dakar, and you show up the first day and there's just such this visual overload. And especially when, like, if you're not a racer and you're not somebody that likes, the motorsport of rally or desert racing, then you show up and it's, oh yeah, cool. It's just a bunch of tents and people everywhere. But when you are, you're looking at the setup, you're looking how the pits look, you're looking at, what are they doing? There's just so much to see. And I mean, it's like, it almost feels like, okay, well, if I'm going to race this, maybe I should just go once as support crew and then the next time go, as a racer or something, to get over that shock of just everything that's there.
Yeah. And, and actually my team has a service truck, which is, a garbage truck size. And I had never seen it before. So like, they also had a motorhome and another truck. So they have, these big vehicles that I'd never seen. I'm like, oh yeah, like I get to stay in this. This is awesome. So it's just something to add on to that. And actually, I can't believe I forgot. I need to do a little bit of bike testing. So I need to do a little bit of suspension testing because I've never done it. The dust bikes are here. They're allowing me to take one out, do some suspension testing, try some parts out that I want to try. And I'm actually going to take the bike apart all the way to the frame and put it back together.
Okay.
Because, like the gas tank incident, I had never taken the gas tanks off. That's something that's not that difficult, but it's difficult being your first time. And so I'm like, I should take the bike part at least once, put it back together and just understand how things work, just in case there's issues. And that's something I'd like to do. And I'm taking the time that I have the bikes here to do that. And I also would like to, so on the RFR, there's a little bit of a toolkit. I would like to organize that and make it my own, and just make the certain tools that I want and just know exactly what I have. Not that there wasn't stuff, because I had everything I needed. I just want to know exactly what I have and make it more familiar to me, for when I go over. And that way, if there's an issue, I know the bike, I know what tools I have, and I'm, ready to address the situation. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I mean, and even find the shortcuts, right? I'm thinking like when we were talking about transferring fuel earlier, I'm thinking like the stuff from like, I think Takomoto has that kit where you can like directly power the fuel pump, and then it's got like a quick release. So you could basically like siphon your own fuel from one tank to the other and not actually even have to unmount the tank. You just literally like, okay, well, as long as the fuel pump's good and I can connect directly to it, and we're getting fuel out of this thing and into another, like all those little things that like you said, you didn't have time with the bike to be able to figure it out.
Yeah. And that's something, I can do now. And you're right. Like if I had been quicker on my fuel tank, issue, I would have maybe made past the checkpoint where they cut off for the day, which would have given me a lot better finish, because I ended up finishing like 55th. But that time was really valuable because I could have finished in the top 20, because I ended up finishing 22nd. But finishing in the top 20 would have been a lot better for me. And but it's all in hindsight. And like you live and learn and take advantage of the time you have now.
Yeah, I mean, and especially having the bike, at your disposal to be able to pick up on these things and learn on these things, it all makes for a better recipe, in the end, and putting the whole program together. It eliminates a lot of the unknowns.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Well, awesome. So you've got a busy race schedule too. You do a lot with the local races stuff. What's next for you there?
Trying to figure it out. We're on summer break now. I was thinking about racing Vegas to Reno. I'm not totally sure yet. It just depends on how everything goes. I've never done an event like Dakar where you literally spend the whole year preparing. So it's kind of new to me. So I'm kind of adjusting to that because, I used to race a lot before Dakar and stuff. And it's kind of where my life's going. It's kind of changing a bit. And, I really want to do well at Dakar. So I'm definitely cutting back and focusing on that. So maybe Vegas to Reno. If I can find a bike, or if the bikes are still here, I'd like to do Baja Rally. I would love to do the world rallies, but it's just too much funding. And, Baja Rally seems like a cool event. I've never done it. Seems like it would be fun to do. If I have the means, like I would like to do that. But basically, yeah, I'm just focus on getting ready for Dakar next year.
Yeah. Nice. Well, yeah. And I mean, it is literally a whole year's effort to get there.
Yeah. And like, some people take some 2 or 3 years, which at first I was like, I don't know how you could spend that much time, but after having gone to Dakar, I understand it now and it makes more sense. And, I'm going to try and, we talked about earlier, me and Dusko are going to start doing some rally training here for a bit. Mm-hmm. And so some more info should be coming out soon on that.
Nice.
And yeah, just making road books, having fun, being better prepared, and going for Dakar again.
Nice. Yeah, that's good. I mean, good development program. You already know what it's going to take. It sounds like you got a pretty good recipe going. And then especially, having the ability to help, train some people, get some people fold them into the fold or get them hooked.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Nice. Very nice. Well, awesome. Well, it's Friday. I'll let you get to it. But yeah, I mean, anything in closing, any shout outs, anybody we want to?
Well, I'd first like to thank the Dusko team. They've supported me from the beginning when I went to Abu Dhabi, and I've stuck with them, and we've formed a nice little team. And I like where it's going. We're having fun. They're actually supposed to come back in August to do a little bit of training before they head to Route of 40. So that'd be cool. Ace Nielsen at High Desert Adventures, they took care of us at Sonora Rally. We were working together. He's been a great supporter of mine and riding buddy. And, big thanks to him. It was awesome to share Dakar with him. It was only him and my friend Larry that came to Dakar as far as like people in my camp. Mm-hmm. So it's a really cool experience to share it with him. I know, he ended up crashing and not finishing. But it was still a really fun experience to share it with him. And, I thank him a lot. And, all my supporters and people that came to my fundraising, bought a t-shirt, did rally training with me last year at the Hare and Hounds, and, just helped me get there. And, I appreciate all of them. And yeah.
Nice. Good. Well, yeah. And I mean, we'll, keep up with your program, see how it develops. You were going to say?
Oh, I was going to say, and, thanks to Chasing Waypoints for having me on here. I've been an avid listener from the start.
Nice. I appreciate that. And yeah, it was kind of cool. It was the first time I did any of that, like having mics on me at an event. So it was cool. I appreciate you taking the time, even though I just like threw the microphone basically at you.
Yeah, but it works well, impromptu, but I think it worked well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the whole thing. I mean, I was actually talking to a friend about it the other day, and they're like, "Oh, so how do you do the interviews?" And I'm going, "I call somebody on the phone, and then we just talk." Yeah. You don't no, because then it takes away from it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but awesome. So no racing this weekend? Just chilling.
Just chilling. Actually, I was gonna put knobby tires on the rally bike, or at least the rear, and I was gonna go to Glen Helen for the first time. I wanted to. I raced a race here in the States, which I wanted to do. Now I want to take it to a motocross track and try the rally bike out. So yeah, I'm going to put some knobby tires on and go try it at Glen Helen this weekend and see how
go play around. Now, that's just on the track, or do they open up the GP side where you can go out a little ways?
Oh no, full moto.
Okay.
Just moto for me.
Got it.
I'm going to fill it full of tanks. I'm going to drain both of them. That's my goal.
All right. And then what does that thing hold? 9 gallons or something like that?
Yeah, 9 gallons.
Oh, she gonna be heavy.
Yeah, but that's the thing too. Like I got to learn that, because there's certain ways to drain the tanks, and I'm not sure which way I like. Because if you drain one tank, it affects the handling. If you drain the other, it affects the handling. So it's like I want to start full and just try certain things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy that you actually have that is actually a thing. But I mean, just like shifting your weight back and forth on a bike is what tank you drain first. It's like what helps you more.
Yeah, and there's certain ways to do it. Like people do it differently for dunes, and like I'm not sure, but yeah, there's ways to do it, and it's got to find what's best for you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, awesome. Well, I'll look for the posts and have some fun out there at Glen Helen, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Victor.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, sir.
All right. Talk to you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. So there you have it. That was Jacob Argubright, and that is awesome. That's kind of one of the things, right? After the Dakar, you think, like, when they do it once, like, are they going to go back? It's such a big undertaking, a huge undertaking. And like you kind of heard, the estimate is about $75K. Can you put a price on the dream, of going and doing that? I mean, no, it's definitely something that's, you have to consider, right? And there's huge sacrifices and huge things going, and sponsors and everything, and it is not easy. I mean, it is definitely not easy by any means. So I'm glad to hear that he is working on going back. A racer at heart, right? He's very competitive out in the hare scramble scene and anything he races. So seeing him wanting to do that, as he was talking about getting the bike, taking it apart, making sure, he knows the bike and knows all of these things. And I mean, we talked about it, right? When the Dakar on the last stage is a game of seconds, you think about like 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there at the back of the pack is still the same thing. The gaps of time that are lost and the things that occur, a 20-minute or a 5-minute deficit at the back of the pack is a huge deal, just like a few seconds is at the front of the pack. So a lot of that, anything you can do to better your chances, anything you can do to like really like increase your game. And like I said, I mean, getting into the flow state and being able to ride without thinking, being able to navigate without thinking, it's just the whole thing. Some people can navigate without thinking and some people can ride without thinking, but putting both of them together and getting into that locked in state is absolutely crazy. It's not something that comes, within the first couple of years, I would think. The big thing is just riding and getting navigation in and just doing that stuff. So I'm working on a few projects. We've been talking about this for a while. I've been doing some recording and some things, and I'm hoping to release some stuff here soon for you guys. And for those of you that are interested listening worldwide, I really appreciate it. We've got some stuff coming that are going to help you guys get into rally, make it easier for the transition from going from where you're at now and just getting behind your first road book. So I'm absolutely excited about it. I've got 2 bikes that I got to work on. So I am going to get to that today. Again, it's Friday, but you guys will be hearing this in a couple of days on Sunday. So feel free to reach out. Send me a direct message if you got any questions on Instagram. I'll continue to reach out to these guests and get some people. I've got a few questions already that I got to work on getting answered, but I'm absolutely looking forward to it and get more content, get more episodes. We've got a list that's starting to develop with future guests, so I'm really excited about that as well. So anyway, with that being said, guys, remember, it'll make sense when you get there. Enjoy the ride. All right, that is the wrap for the Chasing Waypoints podcast this week. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like what you heard. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and a bunch of others. Also, follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook under Chasing Waypoints, Instagram, Chasing Waypoints _official, and of course, the YouTube under Chasing Waypoints. Hope everybody has a good week. We will see you guys for the next episode. Remember, shiny side up, and don't forget to tag us. We want to see where you guys are riding and what you guys are up to. Have a great week.